Curve Servers, Episode 5. I'm on the block. I got my first double up. A $25 double up from Big Power. He told me to keep my mouth shut so nobody knows where I'm getting this sack. I got to figure out, how am I going to get on the block? I don't really want the bigger homies to know, like, I got a sack because, I'm not part of their crew. I don't want certain parents to know because I'm still young. I'm still figuring out what I got to do. The first thing I do is I loop in my tight crew, the boys I kind of hang with on a daily when I'm not hanging with the bad kids. I get right to my homeboy Murdoch, my homeboy Ken Dog, my homeboy Jonas, and my homeboy Skiwi. I let them know. I said, hey, check this out. I got a $25 double up. I'm about to start pushing on the block. Skiwi immediately say, yeah, hey, I ain't mad at you. I can't participate because, my mama gonna trip. Cause Skiwi moms, she don't play. My homeboy Ken Dog, he's like, yeah, I'm down. What we gotta do? Let's get some money. But really, Ken not really down because his stepdaddy's in his life and his stepdaddy don't play. His mama, she don't play, but she don't have as much control as Ken Dog. But his stepdaddy, oh yeah, he don't play. So Ken, he just fronting. Now Jonas, he was like a little bit of the choir boy within the crew. Yeah, he went to church a lot. He was clear that, hey man, listen, I ain't gonna run around, I ain't gonna rap, I ain't gonna tell nobody what's going on. But you know damn well I can't participate in selling no crack. No way, no how. My boy Murdoch looked at me, he said, man, what you talking about? Let's do what we gotta do. Give me half that shit. Just tell me what we gotta do. The first thing we gotta do, we gotta figure out who the crackheads that nobody around here don't know, so we don't have everybody in our business. So we said, let's push down to the other end of the block, down by the donut stand. The homies don't hang down there too much. We can find some crackheads down there that's not familiar with the homies. Me, Murdoch, Ken Dog, Skiwi, and Jonas, this was a no-go for them. They stayed right there on the block. They was like, no, we can't travel down there to the end of that block because, yeah, it's going to be like, what y'all down there doing? I'm like, man, we're gonna be down by the donut shop. We're going to go play Super Mario Brothers. That's going to be our undercover. Skiwi and Jonas knew better, which was a great decision for them. But Ken Dog, Murdoch, and myself, we're pushing to the other end of the long block, away from the bigger homies, so we can establish ourselves on the block, on the edges of the block. The first night, nothing went well. We didn't make any money because we really wasn't getting out there. We was trying to hide behind some cars, keep away from parents. We wasn't ready to get on the main stage. We was nervous. But the next day, I got up bright and early. I started walking all the way down the boulevard, around the corner, the main street. It was hot. There was police moving around. A lot of faces I wasn't familiar with, older, gangsters. Quickly, I found myself going back around to the block I was more familiar with. I just played it off, hanging out, acting like nothing's up. I'm broke. I don't have nothing. Eventually, later that night, I make my first sale. Yeah, I got my first sale. It was a $10 sale. I was sitting down towards the end of the block by some cars, me and Murdoch. We was by ourselves. We was chilling. Someone that looked like it was a possibility that could have been a crackhead was walking down the street, and we just shot him in the line. Hey, we got that. He said, you got what? You got that. What you saying? Let me see. I broke out the sack. I showed him the little white rock. His eyes got big. You can tell I piqued his interest. He said, well, how much for that? I said, $10. He said, here you go. And he took off walking the other way. Me and Murdoch was so excited. We D-boys on the block. We don't just got a pack. We out here making money. A few days go by. Other kids that's not part of the older kids, but that's a little bit older than us. They're starting to notice us hanging down towards the other end of the block. What we had to do to play it off, we had to push down around the corner on the avenue. See, in the avenue, another crew of our childhood friends, this is another crew that stayed around the corner on the avenue, they were starting to become D-boys too. And two of these boys I went to elementary school with, so I was really tight with. One of them is my homeboy Lips. Lips is a wild young boy. Straight hustler, he's about the bread. He's about whatever. Me and him is like best friends in elementary. I push around the corner to Lips. I'm like, hey, Lips, you know I'm over here on my block. We pushing that whoop whoop. We serving that crack. My big homie got a sack too, and we been around here pushing that crack too. I said, Lips, you lying. He said, yeah. The homie just got a sack, and he just introduced it to a couple of us. Most of the homies don't know, but a couple of us, we already stepping off the porch. So now I'm hanging around the corner with the boys on the avenue, back and forth from the avenue, coming back to the block. Because I'm trying to avoid certain parents on my block and certain older homies. Dirt bike notice. Dirt bike roll up on me. Hey, let me holler at you. Hey, what's going on? I heard you down there on the corner. I said, yeah, I got a sack. He said, man, didn't I tell you was too young? I said, no, you told me I was too young to hang with you guys. Now I already got my sack. He said, check this out. Watch your tone. Quickly. I got it together. I had to remember who I was talking to. I said, check this out, Dirtbite. I already got a sack, man. Like, and I don't want to be down here. I'll be down there at the avenues chilling with them. He said, man, that's even more dangerous. He said, if you're going to do that, come on down here towards us where I can teach you how to do it right. This is the first time Dirtbite let me come down and hang with the older homies on the block. Although I was happy to be accepted into the crew, I had to let Dirtbite know. I'm down there with Lips them. He says, all right, be careful. I know them your little friends. But it can get dangerous, especially with the police starting to snoop around here. We didn't have regular police. We had sheriffs. So it was very important to take this game very serious. I'm hanging on both sides of the block. I'm hanging over with the homies on the avenue, and I'm hanging on the boulevard. And I'm looking so young, can't nobody really tell what I'm doing. And Lips too. Lips is very young. And let me tell you something. The boys on the avenue, they didn't start as early as we started, but not too long after we started, yeah, they was over there pushing crack too. Yeah, they were early crack boys or D-boys early in the game over on the avenue. Not quite as early as us, but they was making their moves early too. As I venture back around to the block, I notice it ain't just Lil Wino and Dirtbite pushing this crack. Now I see Slick got a bag, Ben got a bag, Jap got a bag. I seen my homeboy Jamsky with a bag. This was no longer just some guys hanging outside, talking neighborhood shop. No, there was a motive to the madness now. At this point, when I start venturing down there with the homies, one thing I noticed, they were all taking turns. When nobody jockeying for a sale, when nobody running up saying, hey, no, everybody, they took their time and they said, hey, it's your turn. Whoever turn it was, this is how they decided who was going to approach the crackhead. And if you got to make a $10 sale, a $50 sale, a $5 sale, it was all the same. It was like fishing. You throw your fishing pole in the water and you see what you pull out. Well, around on the avenue, no, them boys didn't have that type of discipline. No, it was more of a everybody for themselves. When I went around there, they were all kind of run up to the customer, 2 or 3 of them at one time, trying to out-sell each other. See, around on the boulevard, them boys, they had more discipline. That was a no-go. Around on the avenue, oh, that was normal. It was normal for 2 or 3 of them to run up to the car because the car pull up. And they thought it was like a friendly competition. The boys on the boulevard, they never looked at it like that. It was more like a family business. I'm not making no money. I'm making just enough to eat and get that 25 double up again. As I'm starting to hang on the block, there is a little bit of a shift. When it gets dark, and I'm not talking about when the sun first goes down, what we call sunset. No, I'm talking about many hours after that. 9, 10, 11 o'clock. There's no more youngsters hanging around. No, there's nobody in my crew outside. Ken Dog got to be in the house. Skiwee, he's not even hanging down at the end of the block. Jonas is going in the house the minute it gets sunset. Murdoch, he can hang outside a few hours after sunset, but about 8 o'clock, yeah, his mama making him go in the house too. See, this one hanging with the older homies was starting to get a little different. They're going to cut you out the cell. Yeah, they're going to take turns with each other, and they're going to look at you like, what are you doing here? You can hang out with us, but you're not part of the rotation. See, you're hanging out late night with the older homies, they cut you out of the rotation. You just hanging to be hanging. So I venture around on the avenue because Lips, he was the only other youngster that I knew that could stay out late and didn't have no curfew. In junior high, Lips and me, we didn't have no curfew. We was hanging out with the big boys. I used to go around the avenue, I see Lips, his big brother Mums. He would be out there on the block. Wasn't no youngsters on my block hanging out though. The next youngster closest to my age that was hanging out on the block, and he was 2 or 3 years older than me, was Lil Wino. Lil Wino was hanging on the block. He's an original curve server. He was out there. He was out there with Ben and Jamsky and Slick and Jap. Yeah, he was out there with them. I was out there, but I wasn't part of the rotation. So what I would do, I would start, always walking down to the 24-hour hamburger stand. It was located on the main boulevard. You get a lot of traffic at weird hours of the night. And that would be my way of creeping. What we would call back in those days, we'd call it short stopping. I would try to short stop. And I'd try to catch one of the crackheads walking past as I was just hanging out down there to get a little ice cream, a milkshake, some french fries. Just go down there and order some simple shit. And you catch one of the crackheads walking towards the block. And you short stop. You say, hey, where you going down there? I got it right here. You don't even have to make that trip for the extra half a block. I'm right here. Short stopping, that's a very dangerous game. See, I didn't know this originally. I just got tired of being cut out of the rotation. I didn't even know it was called short stopping. But I learned this real quick. I learned lessons about why you don't short stop. This is the end of episode 5. Episode 6 is coming soon.